So it has come to my attention that a lot of you don't know how to mix down or master. It's all over my Facebook page. I'm on that very often, by the way, so please like my Facebook page. I post a lot of different stuff on there, and my SoundCloud. I have like 2 songs I have up there that isn't even uploaded to YouTube, so little things. So yeah, this is going to be more of a mixdown tutorial than mastering, because I'm not too keen on the mastering part, I'm not gonna lie, for a few reasons. The first one is I'm not a mastering engineer. I don't have the equipment to master professionally. I'm only turning 17 in like a couple months, so I'm definitely not a mastering engineer. I'm still sort of learning myself, but what you should be doing if you're serious about producing, if you're serious about making your own tracks, definitely send your tracks over to someone who knows what he's doing. So that can be professionally a mastering engineer who essentially does this for a living, or has the equipment to do it properly. But if your mix down sucks, don't expect the person who is professionally mastering your track to make it all better, because the reality is, if you have a shitty mix down, a good mastering engineer won't necessarily be able to fix all your issues. Some people will give you a mix down and mastering service, but not everyone will. I might be able to link some websites and stuff, but definitely find an engineer who mix down and masters, or one or the other, in your style, in your genre, or whatever, and they'll usually send you some samples. But anyway, we're gonna be doing some mix down stuff. Don't blame mastering for the reason for why your mix isn't good, or your song doesn't sound professional, because a lot of it does lie within the mix down. I'm not a professional at mixing myself, but you know what, I'm getting there. And some advice I would have, a little tip, is have a song that sounds a lot like your song, or a song that sounds similar to the song you want to make, or something, not necessarily musically, just like a well mastered or a well mixed down song, and put it in FL Studio and just sort of compare it to what you're doing, and that can help with the leveling, because a lot of the times our ears sort of get tired and used to what we're used to hearing, and etc. And then I don't know. But anyway, the kick is supposed to be the loudest thing in the mix. That doesn't necessarily mean 0 decibels. Some people think that you have to have it at 0. Just make everything revolve around the kick. We got to compress it first. I want to get through this because I literally done this tutorial a couple of times, and they're all like 40 minutes long, and I'm so tired of doing it. And they all had technical issues, so hopefully it should be fine now. Compression, won't get into it too much. I do have some tutorials on the plugins, such as compression, Fruity Compressor. But we're basically taking the kick that was initially at -8 decibels, and we're going to bring that up to we're going to keep it at -8. It's just that we want it so that the threshold is below -8 decibels. So the threshold has to be lower than the original peak, and then you want to have like a ratio of whatever amount. So this sort of goes by ear. This kick doesn't need too much compression, I don't think. And then, as you can see, it's at like -11 right now, so bring it up so that it goes back up to -8. And that's basically what compression is. You can change the attack and release, but we won't get into that too much. Then you want to EQ. All kicks are different, again, so that changes the way you compress, but do compress before you EQ. Don't EQ first. It just sort of makes more sense to or not to, because you'll have to like EQ, compress, and then you'll have to EQ again. So you might as well just EQ after you've compressed your kick. Do keep in mind, though, that while you're listening to your kick alone, it's not going to sound the same when you got everything else playing on top, which I don't even think I previewed for you yet. That's pretty embarrassing. Yeah, we'll listen to that in a second. I'm like really confused because I literally just finished doing this tutorial, and now I'm doing it again. So yeah, if you're listening to the kick now, it's not necessarily going to sound the same when you got all the other stuff going on, because you compressed it, and the louder, more boosted frequencies, which is like the 2 and the 4 here and the 7, those are going to be a lot more like audible when everything else is going to be playing on top of it than, like, let's say this lowered part, the upper mid or whatever. So do keep that in mind. You might have to like go back and re-EQ the kick or whatever, compress it again, depending. So Some people do like to EQ before compressing anyway. I just want to bring that topic back. Some people like to EQ, compress, EQ. It makes like a nice compressor sandwich. Yeah, we'll listen to everything because I don't think we actually did yet. That's pretty embarrassing. Turn down your speakers or your headphones. It might get a little loud. So here we go. So that's basically what it sounds like. Listen to this other little stuff individually. That's our main lead. It's our bass. I did this purposely for the tutorial, not really trying to be musically amazing. It's just to make it so that everything works together, like frequency-wise and stereo-wise. This is our pad. I could have spent a lot more time making these instruments, but I decided not to, just because it does matter a lot, but it doesn't, it's fine. Another little melody on top of everything else. Then we have these samples. Pick your samples carefully, depending on the type of song you're making. It's another. Don't always go for a big clap like this. Where is it? There it is. I do like using claps like that for big tracks, big anthem-y sort of things. But honestly, I've stopped using them nearly as much as I used to, because I don't know. I don't know if it's just because it's overused or something, but it does get in the way a lot. You don't always need a big old clap like this. Little tiny claps, short claps, human-like sort of hand claps. They sound good for a lot of progressive and a lot of house stuff, so you don't always need a really loud clap. But anyway, getting into different topics here. We want to be able to mix the kick and the clap first. That's what I do when we're going into percussion. So the clap sort of has to be loud enough so that you can definitely hear it. You can definitely hear it when you're listening to everything together, like the climax line. You want to be able to still hear it. You don't want anything to be washed away during the climax line, but you don't want the clap to overpower the kick. That's just a no-no. So if you can't hear the kick very well when the clap is on top of it, that might not be a good sign, especially since this is like this big old clubby clap. But if you have like a much softer clap, then you might be able to have the clap louder, definitely louder. But still, you don't want it to be overpowering the kick. The basic EQ rule for when you're not EQing the kick or the basses is to low cut everything. So that's basically what we're going to be doing, or what you're going to see me doing, is low cutting things that aren't the kick or that isn't the kick or the bass. We're just removing all that extra low noise that we're just not going to need, and that gets in the way of the kick and everything else. If you think your clap sounds dry, or anything sounds too dry, add a little bit of reverb. I don't think I'm going to need to do it, just because we're going to be listening to everything together, and you're not even going to hear the reverb when everything else is playing, so there's really no use. But when you're doing like an intro or something, you might want a little bit of reverb, but not always. Careful where you add your reverb as well, because if you have reverb on every other channel, it's just going to be too much reverb, and it's the same concept. It's all going to sort of mesh together, and you don't really want that. So we want it to kind of fit, and we want it to be clean, so definitely keep things simple. Don't reverb everything, and just because it's dry, a lot of other things will, like other reverbs, will kind of act as a reverb or wetness for other channels. You'll know what I mean. But anyway, open hi-hat, let's just do that really quick. Same concept as a clap. You don't want it overpowering anything and being really obnoxious, but you don't want it too low that you can't really hear it, or it'll be washed away, because that's not good either. when you're doing all this, like these balancing things, like when you're balancing or leveling your tracks, you want to be listening to the kick. I mean, that's something just to remember. Don't focus on anything else but the kick when you're sort of balancing everything else. I mean, that gets really hard, and it gets really hard to listen to everything at the same time as well. So if you're kind of unsure, make sure you're able to hear that kick, and it's not overpowering everything else. You know what I mean? Especially in the climax, you know, you want to make things sound louder, so don't make the kick overpower anything. But you don't want your kick to wash away either, you know, because I mean, it's very important. It's supposed to be the loudest thing in the mix. I don't know if that's necessarily true or not, but it's supposed to be the center of the entire mix, so make sure that you can still hear it, but it's not overpowering things. You know what I mean? Same concept, just, you know, be sure to listen out for that kick when you're doing your mix down. The closed hi-hat doesn't really need much EQing, honestly, so we're just gonna leave it and go straight to the bass. I'm gonna mix the bass and the kick alone because that's the two low end section. I don't want anything else in the way. So you can compress the basses. I've heard a lot of things suggesting to compress the bass. I'm not really gonna bother doing it, honestly, just because. But you know, and especially when you're doing like your mastering, there's a lot of low end compression anyway. So I don't know. Some people say to do it, but I'm just gonna skip that process for now. And a big thing, obviously, because the bass is like these long notes, we need to sidechain that bass, right? So right now it sounds like this, which is just wrong. So we're gonna take the kick channel and then we're gonna create this little sub mix, I think that's what it's called, and we just bring it down. Then go back to the bass, open up a fruity limiter. And I mean, come on guys, you've seen this. You've seen me do this so many times. I don't think I really need to explain myself, but we're just sidechain compressing the kick or the bass so that whenever the kick hits, the bass sort of ducks or whatever the instrument is. It's just so that the kick still is able to breathe, even though there's other longer instruments playing over it, sort of, if that makes sense. Don't overdo your sidechaining. Don't make it sound way too sidechained, if you know what I mean. You don't want to make it too obvious that the bass is ducking underneath the kick, but it still has to be sort of like, I mean, it depends on the situation. Like some people it would work to have a bass sort of sounding like this. But for the most part, I think it just sounds better in general to have it so, you know, kind of a nice balance, you know, not too light, not too heavy. So I think that works pretty well. We're gonna bring down that bass a little bit, and then we're gonna EQ it as well. There's way too much midsection, upper mid, and treble, so we're gonna start removing that because that's where all the pads and where all the bass, or sorry, the leads go. And if the bass is there taking up all the room, then there's gonna be nowheres for the lead and the other stuff to breathe. It's just gonna create a lot of extra noise in this section here, and you know, the bass can just screw right off pretty much. So let's just get rid of that. I should spend a lot of time doing this because we want a nice balance of hearing that treble and still hearing the character of the bass, which is pretty much lies in the midsection. But yeah, no, I don't want this to last too long. So just sort of getting rid of that extra noise that we don't really need. I could just sort of do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, but not extremely necessary for this bass, I don't think. As long as we have the bass side chained, it'll work when we have everything else layered on top of it. So we're gonna go straight to, I mean, we could just listen to everything together except for like the leads and stuff, all the stuff that we worked on, so the percussion and the bass. Mixing and stereo imaging is all about contrast. When you're doing your leveling, your balancing, a lot of it has to do with contrast. So if you have your clap a little bit lower, again, don't wash it away, but like having it softer may very well make everything else sound louder. You know what I mean? So because it's just like this big old clubby clap, if the club is clapping and it sounds very soft, then you can assume that the music must be pretty damn loud. So that's sort of how our brain works. So that's why I brought the clap down a little bit, because it was just too loud, and the bass didn't sound loud at all. It didn't sound powerful because the clubby clap was way too loud, I guess. So I brought that stuff back down, and I think it sounds a little bit better. I'm not sure yet. I mean, I'm doing this over my headphones. Anyway, we can always go back to this. We gotta move on to the pad. So same idea here. Have the kick linked to the pad. That's the pluck to the pad, so that we can sidechain it. So same idea. When you have the kick on top of a bunch of other stuff, you don't want to lose your kick, right? So we gotta sidechain it as well. I just kind of use the exact same preset from the bass, and I put it underneath the pad just because it'd just be the same sort of bouncing sidechain thing, you know what I mean? It had the same level of duck, so I thought that would work. But yeah, we'll adjust that if we need to, and then we have to EQ that pad as well. Keep in mind though that the pad is right on top of the lead as well, and the lead and the pad are pretty similar. I mean, they're very, very similar, so we'll have to keep in mind that we'll have to come back to the pad when we're done EQing the lead. And yeah, I was gonna say some, not sure what I was gonna say, so I'm just gonna keep on going. Again, this would be a good time to have your other song playing, like that professionally mastered track or your professionally mixed track. It could be your favorite song ever. I don't really care. But as long as it has a good mix down, you could always compare it to what you're doing right now. So let's say I had one of my favorite songs, I don't know, like Sun and Moon by Above and Beyond, good classic. I could just have it like on top of what I'm doing, and then just listen to the climax of that song and then go straight back to this song and kind of notice what the leveling sounds like. You know, you got to take in consideration that that song was professionally mastered and this one is unmastered. So in a sense, that might not be the best thing to do. Some people might not recommend it for that reason, but I think if you're completely lost, and sometimes I find your ears can kind of get tired of what you're listening to. I don't know if I mentioned that. I'm so confused because I've done this tutorial so many times that yeah, sometimes, you know, you lose touch of a lot of the leveling stuff because your ears are just sort of so used to listening to the same thing over and over that I think it sort of it drives some sort of illusion that you're doing something right, or you're trying to make that bass just sound louder and louder and louder just because your ears just got so tired of hearing it for a while. So definitely take breaks, but if you don't want to do that, listen to a song that sounds similar, or you want to base your mix down off of because you just think that particular song has a good mix down, if you know what I mean. Little tip for you. So I'm gonna go straight to the mixing the lead as well, because it works so much with the pad that we have to kind of adjust the EQ accordingly. And same idea, we're gonna have the same side chain to the kick. So with the lead there, make sure to bring down the level of the knob. It's already brought down for me because I've done this before, but just keep that in mind. So yeah, we'll take a listen to that. Again, this would be a good time to listen out for that kick. Make sure that you can still hear it, but make sure it's not overpowering anything, because again, all about contrast, all about making everything else sound like it's the most powerful part of the song. So it has to be sort of loud, because I mean everything is sort of playing at once. It does sound like a main hook or a climax line. Some people like to call it a drop, even though that's probably not what it should be called. But yeah, so I think it sounds all right. For now, we got to have that other melody. Some people would sidechain this, others wouldn't. If you don't have it sidechained, it definitely stands out a lot more. But having it sidechained, it sort of blends in a lot more. So it depends what you're looking for. If you want that extra melody to stand out, then I would consider or recommend that you don't sidechain it, because then it'll be sort of different in that sense. Here, I'll get you to listen to it. But yeah, this is the second lead without sidechaining. And I mean, again, obviously it definitely sounds a little bit weird because it has, everything else is sort of bouncing and that one isn't. But yeah, this is what it sounds like with the sidechain. I think some people like to have all their basses, all their leads, and all that nonsense very wide, very on top of the kick, if you know what I mean, like too loud. But you'd be surprised. You can really, really hear the main lead or whatever, even though it's not way above the kick, like on the decibel meter, because the lead right now is peaking at like -8, -7. So that's about where the kick is. A little bit louder, but I don't think it was actually sidechaining there, so it probably is slightly lower when it is sidechaining. Yeah, see, it's -9. So I mean, I think you can hear it as well. You might want to do some stereo imaging stuff. Using this knob here does stereo image the thing that you want, but you can also just use the stereo enhancer. Don't just widen the lead because you think it'll make everything sound bigger, because in a sense it can do that, but again, stereo imaging, just like mixing, is all about contrast. So if you want to have your main lead sound bigger, sometimes you don't really have to stereo image that so much, then just have other things sound more merged or more mono, so turning it to the right. Same exact concept with reverb. A lot of people like to have the reverb really wide or whatever, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a wider sound. You'll have a bigger ambience maybe, but I find that if you want your original sound to sound wider, sometimes it's a good idea to have your reverb more merged or more mono, because that will make your original sound bigger if the reverb or ambience sounds smaller. You know what I mean? That's kind of my idea behind it. So keep that in mind. Sometimes you do want to just have your pad separated a little bit more and just leave the lead where it was. Or you can merge it just slightly, but it does depend on the lead itself, how much of this is sort of a super saw, my main lead, right? And my pad is not so much. Like it is, I guess, but this definitely sounds a lot more wide and detuned than my pad, I think, anyway. You could add reverb to the pad. I don't really feel like doing it just because it's not really going to do much. But I mean, something like this, you could add some reverb to that just because it sounds dry and it's very mono as well. So I could just add reverb here, and I don't know. I'm not going to spend too much time on this actually. Another thing, please don't forget about this, is the fruity delay. Please, because A lot of the times, like I say, clean tracks, they don't necessarily need too much going on. Clean, bright, professionally made tracks actually have, very simple mix downs. Like, they don't have like layers on top of layers of instruments like I used to do, which was a problem that happened when I was mixing Her Eyes. I had so many percussion instruments going on, and like 2 leads and like 3 basses. It was ridiculous, and I could not find a good mix down and master. It did come out pretty well, but it definitely sounded quite crowded. So if you want an idea of what crowded sounds like, listen to Her Eyes. Available on my YouTube. So on my YouTube channel, not on iTunes though, or on Beatport. What I like to do with my delay is I bring the pan over to the left and then the OFC to the right. I have my milliseconds to 5.5, and you got to adjust the time accordingly to the melody or whatever, but I think this should sound fine. Don't make the delay too loud, and make sure it's on ping pong. Delay can definitely widen the sound. Even though the original sound sounded so mono, it was ridiculous. Now that we have an echo that is very stereo image, thanks to the OFC and the panning, thankfully it definitely widens it a little bit, and also the reverb widens it a little bit as well. So you're not going to hear it so much over the climax and over everything else. However, when the lead is playing on its own, it definitely sounds, nicer than it did. You don't necessarily have to use the OFC. It does depend on what kind of lead you're using. I think that's just offset stereo. I think that's what it's called. Yeah, but you don't necessarily have to stereo image the delay, but it is sort of an option. I did have a pluck. It sounds like this. The problem with the pluck was, and I wanted to keep it there so I could show you, was the fact that you're not going to hear it. You're not going to hear it over any of this nonsense. It's just extra noise pretty much. So don't add extra unnecessary noise trying to make your sound or your song sound fuller, wow, or more professional or whatever, because again, a lot of the times you just need take the lead for example. It sounded very mono at first, but then we added reverb and delay, and then it sounded sort of fuller. Not sure which one. I'm pretty sure it's fuller. But and I mean, that's just a decent example of what I'm talking about here. So just adding little things like that can definitely help. But adding a pluck, it's just not going to make any difference. So you might as well just not have it there. That's how I see it anyway. Have one complaint. The complaint would be that the kick doesn't sound very bassy. But other than that, we can move on to the mastering stuff. Unfortunately, I did not save any time. This is basically where we started the mastering in the last tutorial. I'm so sad that the audio didn't work. But anyway, mastering, can't really do that because, I don't know, I'm just sort of not able to. I haven't got the experience to do it. I don't have the equipment to do it. But some people do ask me, like, how am I able to quote-unquote master so well? And I mean, it's not really the mastering. It's basically just the mix down. All I really do is I use like a limiter, a brick wall limiter or something, to bring out the track and make it so that it's louder. And I didn't do that on Cascade because I brought the mastering the master volume way too low, and I rendered it that way by accident. But yeah. So basically, mastering, I can sort of explain the basics, I suppose, is, I mean, the general concept behind it is just to make it so that your song sounds good under, earbuds, headphones, your studio monitors, regular speakers, but most of all, it needs to sound the way it's supposed to in the clubs. right? And you know you're going to be playing your song under various conditions in different rooms, and you don't want it to sound dramatically different, or it's, you know, the song only works on earbuds and it doesn't seem to work on any other song or sound system, because that's not okay. So that's where the mastering part comes in. You know, compression, things like that. Another thing, you want your song to be competitively loud, so that, you know, when the DJ's mixing, it's not going to be like all these different random levels for the song, but it's just generally better to have your song hitting 0 decibels. The kick right now is at -8, so that's sort of where our song is, but we will bring it up to 0. And the way it works is essentially you have the ceiling at 0 decibels, and then you just push the gain through a little bit. So this is our ceiling, and this is the gain, so we're pushing the song through the ceiling, through the roof, and it's going to break. It's going to break a little bit, but I have to bring these envelopes down so it doesn't sound too much like it's breaking, like it's sort of more transparent. And you don't want it to break too much. Just as it starts to breaking, it should be fine, but depending on the song, you know, you get to decide. But what this does is, so the highs, or the really, really loud frequencies, get washed down underneath the ceiling, or broken, whatever you want to call it, and the low sounds, the low frequencies, are standing out just a couple decibels higher. So that's basically the idea behind the brick wall limiter. So prepare yourself. This might be loud. I'm going to turn down my volume right now, because I know I'm going to be very sad if it like busts my eardrums right out. But yeah, so here we go. It wasn't actually breaking that much. Honestly, I was able to push it through very, very high. I mean, I didn't have to do that earlier, but I mean, depending on the song, don't make it so that it starts like ducking too much. You know what I mean? The kick definitely sounds much different now, and other stuff definitely sounds different. Then you probably want to have to EQ out certain problem frequencies, but you keep the bells pretty wide. You know, don't have like a steep one like this while you're doing your master EQ. That's just stupid. And but I mean, I'm sure some people do it. I mean, I don't know, I can't really be the one to judge, but I usually have my EQ bells like over 50 or something as I'm doing this, like, because it's supposed to form a V. Someone told me that, like, it's supposed to sort of do like this U shape, but I don't know if that's necessarily true or not. But yeah, so we could have something like this. I'd keep the decibels, like, if you're bringing stuff down, don't bring it down like lower than like 3 decibels or so. You don't want like dramatic EQ like that, you know, when you're mastering. And you can't just rely on EQing to remove the problem frequencies. You got to use something called a multiband compressor. So we do have that, which is the multiband compressor here, or Maximus. But I mean, I can't really teach you how to use Maximus. I don't really know how to use it, honestly. It's pretty sad, actually. But I know ImageLine, I think they do have good tutorials on YouTube for that. So I'm sort of referring to other people for the things that I don't know, but that's okay. Yeah, so I think this is what it sounds like now. Some people would be good with that. I think the kick is a little bit too strong right now, and we're missing out on other stuff like the lead. I think it doesn't sound like powerful enough, like it's lacking the energy. But again, you can mess around with the leveling a bit more and some of the EQ stuff. But the way multiband compressors work, and again, FL Studio doesn't really have mastering plugins. Like, this is not necessarily a mastering plugin, you know. Mastering engineers or professionals will use plugins or VSTs or whatever that's effect plugins, you know, that were made purposely for mastering tracks. You know what I mean? FL Studio, I mean, Maximus would be the one, and limiter and multiband compressor, but they're not necessarily made for mastering. You know what I mean? I wouldn't recommend it. Like, a professional wouldn't tell you, oh, you know, go get the fruity multiband compressor for your master, because it's not really made for that, honestly. But if you learn how to use this stuff, I could get into it honestly in other tutorials, but that would be like a series and a half, you know, mastering. And I mean, I can do another song as well. I could go into some of my other tracks on SoundCloud, like Why Are Canadians Scared of the Dark and Epiphany, which was 2 tracks that I uploaded on SoundCloud, but Why Are Canadians Scared of the Dark is still in progress right now. But I could go through some of the mixing and leveling there. I could also get into well, my mastering, but you know, again, my mastering is just pretty soft. I don't get my songs professionally mastered at the moment, but if I did come out with a album, or if I were to play at a club on loudspeakers, I would definitely send my tracks over to someone who knew what he was doing. And yeah, so that's basically it. If you want me again to do another track or another set of sounds, I guess, and see what it looks like there, I could definitely do that, because you can't simply have one method of mixing and mastering for every track. You can't use templates, you can't use presets, you're going to always have to fiddle with it. But I mean, I wouldn't say don't use settings like on Maximus, for instance. If I use like one of the mastering presets, I'm sure it would work just fine. Like, you know what I mean? It might even sound better. Like, who knows, right? So don't be afraid to listen to it, and you might want to fiddle with other stuff, right? So if you think it sounds better, then go for that for sure. But that's my 2 cents. I wouldn't necessarily do it myself, but you know. Anyway, I think that's it. My brain is melting. I just did a 40-minute tutorial, and now I just, you know, I did another one. So there you go. I think I mentioned everything, and yes, we're good. I think we're good. I know I'm gonna like press stop, and I'm gonna be like, oh wait, I forgot to mention this really important thing that they really should know. But no, I'm pretty sure I got everything. I didn't do any like phasers or anything like that. I didn't go into panning as much either, because we didn't have very many hi-hats. I didn't really go into stereo imaging too much either, but don't indulge too much into that like I used to, and I still need to get over, because I think it's all just sort of well, not all that important, I guess. And it's all about perception, it's all about contrast, you know what I mean? So like I explained to you about the clubby claps and the bass, that's basically the concept behind it. But yeah, so that's it. That's all. I might just go down to what I had it before, because I thought it sounded a little bit better actually. Let me see. I don't know. This will be the FLP that you guys will get, so enjoy that. I'm gonna go. I really need to use the washroom. No, I don't actually. I just wanted to say that. Anyway, that's it. Love you guys. I'll talk to you later, and that's it for now.